Hello and welcome to our career interview with Iyal Basen. Joining me today for this interview is Greenville student Adler Carl. So Iyal, we'll get started. If you can tell us what is your profession and tell us a little bit about the journey that you've had to get to where you are today.
Sure. So I am the Director of Press and Public Affairs at the Israeli Consulate in San Francisco. So what that means is that I am in charge of all of the public face of the Israeli consulate in San Francisco. So in the diplomatic world, there's consulates and there's embassies and then missions. But to make this as concise as possible, I'll stick to consulates and to embassies. So a consulate would be a country's representation in a major city. So in the US, they're mainly in San Francisco, Los Angeles, Miami, New York. And then an embassy would be a country's representation in a capital. So our consulate handles the area of the Pacific Northwest. That's Northern California, Washington, Oregon, Alaska, Montana, and Idaho. So I am in charge of interfacing with all of the people from all of those states to make sure that we have an established good connection with people in that region. So that means handling social media, handling press releases, writing op-eds, really anything that interfaces with the public. I write, I edit, I draft to make sure that everything going out is correct, is proper, has good grammar, because you'd be surprised how many people even decades into their career don't have good grammar. And that is what we call politically correct and, won't offend anybody and all of that good stuff.
And what's been your journey to get to where you are today?
So my journey is, I did a combined bachelor's and master's at NYU. My undergrad is in global liberal studies, and then my master's is in international relations. And I graduated with my master's degree last May. It's crazy to think how it's almost a year ago already. And I was interning at the U.S. mission to the United Nations and specializing on U.S. policy on Israel-Palestine affairs. And so after I finished up that internship at the end of January, I was searching for jobs online involving Israel affairs. That's my specialty in international relations. And the internet is amazing. You can just search the word Israel jobs and on LinkedIn and it will populate results. And so this job actually came up advertised on LinkedIn, and it was what we call an easy apply, where you just submit your resume straight on LinkedIn. And a few hours later, I got an email requesting what we call an initial interview, which is just someone who calls you on the phone, talk to you for 15 minutes about what the job is, what your skills are, your experience. And they liked me, liked my experience. And this was the end of January, early February of 2020. And over the course of the next month and a half, I had interviews with my two current bosses now, the Deputy Consul General and the Consul General, and they liked me. And so I then had to go through a security clearance process. So if you're going to work in a government job, you're going to have to go through what we call a security clearance, which is to make sure that you're not a threat to national security. It seems scary, but it's really not. You basically turn over to whatever body is doing the security clearance, whether it's the US government, the Israeli government, the United Nations, whoever you end up working for, basically the story of your life. So you say, these are all the jobs I've had. These are the foreign contacts I have. This is where I've traveled. And you turn over all that documentation to whatever body you're interviewing with, and they determine whether you're a risk or not. Most likely you're not. It's just a matter of formality. So that went on for several months. And so then in June, I finally told me I could start. And so I flew out to San Francisco to begin.
Nice. Adler, ask your question.
So what do you love most about your job?
What do I love most about my job? I like that when we have an interview or a media opportunity, I'm the brains behind the operation. Meaning, I'll take you back to the story of Israeli firefighters that came to California to help battle the blazes that we had this summer. So that was a fantastic opportunity for us to really spread the word about the relationship between Israel and the United States. And I crafted the press releases and the talking points, all the things that went out to the public. And I saw, like, technically it's the consul general who was quoted, but it's actually my words that he's using. So it kind of gives fills with the sense of pride that I am the voice of the consulate, essentially. So I can see, like, my words actually being used in media and having an impact on the public.
What are some of the skills you need for this job, like such as soft skills like communications, problem solving, teamwork, and what are some of the trainable skills, and what would you think are more important to have?
So in my job, communications is the name of the game. Making sure that you have solid writing skills, I think, is the most important. I also do work in Hebrew and Spanish as well. So having a multitude of language skills is very important. So being able to write clearly and concisely and to be able to get your ideas across effectively. That's what I would call good communication skills, good writing skills. So we have written communication, oral communication, being able to write emails that are thorough and convincing, because a lot of my job is trying to convince people to take interviews with us. So being able to write persuasively, convincingly, and effectively, and to talk on the phone in a professional manner, just being able to conduct yourself professionally.
What are some challenges that you face in your work?
So my main challenge is that I'll say this professionally as possible. In a stratified work environment where there's a lot of hierarchy, it can be very difficult to get your voice and opinions across. And that at times I find to be frustrating, because you might think you have the best idea, but ultimately when you're low on the hierarchy, you don't get to have your idea be the final say. You can push for your idea as much as you possibly can, but ultimately it will be someone above you who makes the final decision. And you might think that person isn't making the best decision, and you can think that all you want, but you have to get over it and just take your ego out of it and say, okay, they're doing what they think is best, and I just have to accept it and let it go.
What is some advice you'd have for students going into this profession?
I would say to learn to, like, have the best writing skills that you possibly can. Do a lot of practice. I know, like, even more so than when I was your age, social media is a huge thing. So be very, very, very careful what you post online. That's second. And just learn to write well, write effectively, learn to speak on the phone professionally, and to just always be very personally aware, be it professionally and personally too, because you never know when, an opportunity will come up, or when something will come back to bite you. So I guess those would be my, not to put it in a negative sense, but always just be professional, be aware that whatever you put out into the world can come back to you. So that would be my biggest advice, and just to be professional at all times. That's what I would say.
What are some classes that you took in middle school or high school that connect to your job now?
So history, science sometimes too, actually, with all this coronavirus stuff. Israel is a leader in coronavirus research. So trying to understand all of the epidemiology and the biology, but more so history, global history, American history, Spanish class I took as well. Let's see, what else? English class, all of the AP writing classes I took, AP English. I would say that's about it, the classes that I took. So like very focused on what we call the humanities. So the histories, the writings, the literatures, and the language classes as well.
So Iyal, we're coming to the end of our time for our formal interview, but I want to give you an opportunity if there's anything else you would like to share that you think would be important for middle school and high school students that are going to be viewing this, any other tidbits of wisdom or anything we didn't get to that you want to share?
I would say treat I think I've mentioned this before, but treat every instance you have to meet someone professionally as a golden opportunity, and just meet as many people as you possibly can, because you never know, they can possibly help you in the future. And just don't be afraid to be yourself, to be authentic, and to reach out to people who you think can help you, because you never know. It could be a teacher you have now, it could be a professor you have in college, someone you meet informally at a party or at a coffee shop. You never know when someone down the line can help you, so just don't be afraid to ask for help.
Great. Well, Iyal, I want to thank you for taking the time to meet with us today. I really appreciate it. And
of course, my pleasure.